Hello, this is Spellbinder's weekly report on the newsletter by G. Everett Griffin's The Unfiltered News from the Reality Zone for the last week of December 24th through the 30th. And this is the comics strip for this week. 2011 going out with pepper spray from 2012. Yep, that figures. Makes a lot of sense. Now to the headlines. U.S. civilians now are helping decide who to kill with military drones. Business Insider, December 30th. Yes, you too can have people's blood on your hands. U.S. Talk about New Year's resolutions. Here's one of the best. Run for office. Richard Michael, director of the Project City Hall, explains that 2012 potentially the most important political year in America's history, not because of who will be elected president or which party will dominate Congress, but because it is the year in which freedom-loving citizens like you can acquire political influence in thousands of local public offices across the country. Iowa is the first state to open up for candidates. All others will follow soon. Take this first step now and learn how easy it is. PCA 2011, December 29th. China and Japan, the second and third largest economies in the world, agreed to trade directly without using U.S. dollars as an intermediate currency, as in the past. The world is backing away from the dollar as a reliable international currency. The result will be even more loss of purchasing power for the dollar at home and abroad. Those who keep their primary savings or investments in the form of U.S. dollars will pay dearly for their mistake. New American, December 29th. U.S. sent an aircraft carrier directly into the area where the Iranian Navy was conducting war games. Officially, the purpose was to make a show of force to dissuade Iran from closing the Hormuz Strait. Another purpose may have been to cause accidental damage to the American ships or to goad Iran into firing on it. The U.S. military has long considered ways to inflict damage on its own ships to justify starting a war with Iran, not as an aggressor but as a victim. Prison Planet, December 29th. Beetles are becoming resistant to Monsanto's genetically engineered corn. Don't you know they would? The old method of dealing with this is to rotate crops, but the EPA, under the influence of biotech companies, recommends additional chemical insecticides, more poison than your food for human rat poison, which generates cash flow for the biotech companies. And fulfills Agenda 21, the 80% removal of people. Natural foods are being driven out of existence by genetically engineered crops that depend on commercial chemicals. That's right. You can't. Not only do I have Terminator seeds that only work one time, and you can't get any viral seeds off of the next year's crops, they also are making them chemical dependent. Drug-addicted crops. December 29th by the Daily Mail. A video. African-American man remembers Ron Paul in the 1970s. He tells of being desperate to get medical help for his wife at a local hospital, but being ignored because he was black and his wife was white. Ron Paul, who is a doctor and who was on duty that night, came forward and provided the medical care. He charged nothing for his service and saw to it that there was no bill from the hospital either. This is a very moving story, especially now that his political opponents are claiming Ron Paul is a racist, which he's not, but they're not. See, that just takes you off of what his issues are. He's dealing with the real issues, and they're picking on this to take your mind off of the real issues. This is Revolution Pack, December 28th. Video. Floating debris field the size of California from Japanese tsunami begins to wash up on the west coast shores of Canada. Intel Hub, December 28th. It's probably got a little bit of radiation in it too. Montana judge is unable to gather a jury that is willing to convict a man on marijuana possession charges. This is a sign of growing public disapproval of the so-called war on drugs. Huffington Post posted December 27th. Dow Chemical steps up competition with Monsanto and plans to introduce a new herbicide that contains Agent Orange ingredients to be used on corn, soy, and cotton. This contest over leadership in the production of GMO plants and poison does not bode well with the health of the human race. Of course, activist post December 27th. Video. The media are attempting to smear Ron Paul as a racist. These testimonials by black Americans who are familiar with his personal and political principles say otherwise. These are powerful and thought-provoking endorsements. YouTube, December 26th, and they are. I've watched them. U.S. Only Ron Paul and Mitt Romney will be allowed on the Virginia GOP primary ballot. None of the others were able to collect the 10,000 ballot signatures. CSM, December 26th. Amazing. Video, mothers hug and love brings baby back to life. Click and be amazed. Interesting. Always an interesting story every week. Montana, Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers has launched a campaign to recall the senators who voted in favor of the National Defense Authorization Act that allows indefinite detention of U.S. citizens. Daily Chaos, December 25th. And they should all be brought to trial for treason and things against their constitutional oath. U.S. Austin, president of the NAACP, confirms that Ron Paul is not a racist as his political opponents have claimed. Right Perspective reports, December 24th. A pineapple enzyme is found to be more effective against cancer than chemotherapy. Like many other treatments from nature, it will never be approved by the FDA because it cannot be patented and made a lot of money from. And it will actually probably cure instead of just treat. Activist post, December 24th. U.S. The FDA so-called safe levels of toxins in Gulf seafood following the BP oil spill are 100 to 10,000 times more carcinogenic, cancer-causing than what is actually safe. Natural Society posted December 24th. U.S. The FDA abandons its promise to restrict the use of antibiotics, penicillin, and tetracycline in animal feed that eventually ends up in the meat and is harmful to humans. Instead, the FDA will depend on the agricultural companies themselves to protect the public, even if doing so reduces their profits. Yeah, that should work. Wired posted December 24th. Video, U.S. supporters of the bill to stop online piracy, SOPA, especially CBS and CNET, have an embarrassing secret. They created, promoted, and profited from the software used to pirate copyrighted material. That's right. Kazaa and all of them are products of these same people who are opposing the opponents of this bill, who say this is a great bill. They're the ones that created the software that's illegal to begin with, and they should be held responsible, not the people using it. The very thing they say they want the government to prohibit. This commentator thinks that they did this to create a wave of copyright infringement as an excuse for legislation to give government and its partner corporations control over the internet. Of course. YouTube, December 24th. Excellent video. U.S. Occupy Wall Street is orchestrated by socialists, communists, publicity-funded think tanks, universities, and radical activists. This is not representative of America's 99%. New American, posted November 24th. U.S. The Attorney General of Virginia is pursuing those in academia who are using taxpayer money to perpetuate the global warming myth for political gain. In contrast, the Federal Department of Justice is working with the authorities in the UK to hunt down the person who leaked the ClimateGate emails that exposed the fraud and derailed cap-and-trade legislation, which would have made people billions that were involved in this. What a contrast. Washington Examiner posted December 28. U.S. New York Times submits Freedom of Information Act request to the Justice Department to explain legal justification to assassinate U.S. citizens. The request was denied. Common Dreams posted December 24th. Very interesting. Here's what to expect now that China and Japan have dumped the dollar for their use in trade within Asia, as an Asian Union is being formed to wage trade war with the West. The U.S. is economically doomed because the government and the Federal Reserve, by creating an endless fountain of fiat money to bail out banks and fund the warfare and welfare state, have killed the dollar as an international trade currency. Alt Marx, December 30th. Vote Ron Paul and let my people go. This is the message from Israel, as unexpected as it is inspiring. The writer is Raphael Farbier, a member of the Jews for Ron Paul. He advocates an end to U.S. foreign aid to Israel. Settlers of Samaria, December 29th. That's great news from people of Israel. Most vitamin studies are misleading because they use low-quality vitamins and formulations that contain toxic additives. This is the reason many studies find that vitamin supplementation either is of no value or dangerous. Some of the most popular brands, such as Centrum, are in this category. In short, not all vitamin supplements are beneficial. Natural Society, December 27th. Especially Centrum, when they put them all together and they lose their effectiveness by bleeding into each other anyways. In the tablet, vitamin D can radically reduce your chances of premature death, and it prevents many diseases. Here are the basics of what you need to know, including information on correct dosages. Sunlight is the best source, but supplements can also do the job. Mercola, posted December 27th. Precious metals, ETFs, exchange trade funds are risky. Here's why. Banking cartels created the gold and silver future markets primarily to manipulate their prices and keep them artificially low for decades. Short-term future spot prices have been disconnected from the forces of physical supply and demand. Gold and silver ETFs do not trade precious metals. They trade promises, contracts to do so. Typically, sellers have very little bullion on hand, and they promise to acquire if the buyers actually want to take physical delivery of their contracts mature. Most of the buyers are speculators, not users of the precious metals, so they prefer payment in dollars. So most of the trades are merely a form of gambling. However, if many buyers readily want physical bullion, this forces up the price as sellers bid against each other to obtain the real thing. In this rise in prices beyond the ability of sellers to honor their contracts, they declare bankruptcy and buyers lose their money. This is what caused the recent collapse of the NF Global, which was a reality check for many bullion buyers who now insist on physical delivery only. Seeking Alpha, December 27th. And that's true. Look at Joe Clemente. He lost a bundle on that with MF Global. Ron Paul is being attacked for racist comments he never made. Here are the facts. And it is. You look at this, he never made these comments himself. It was in a letter by name only. A newsletter. He didn't really pay attention to it. So don't blame Paul for things that others wrote. What is meant by sustainable development? This is one of the best short summaries we have seen. Clue. It has everything to do with Agenda 21 and the demise of the United States. Bear witness, December 21st. And here's a great photo. If you haven't seen this before, Dubai in the fog. Rare view atop of skyscrapers that just stick up out of the fog. Alright, that's the news for this week. That's the headlines for the end of the year. You won't see the next one till next year. I'll be reporting. This will be a link to this will be down in the description on the YouTube page under the video, and you'll be able to see all this, because this is G. Ever Griffin's newsletter for the week of December 24th through the 30th. Until next time, this is Spellbinder saying Happy New Year. And I hope you enjoyed 2011. I'm sure 2012 will be more exciting. A lot more exciting. If the time wave zero is true from terrorists, then we should be seeing things speed up exceptionally quicker and quicker and quicker, and things happening faster and faster. Remember, the New World Order's got to go into full force before the end of this year. That's their deadline, the final deadline. They wanted it in 1984 and then in 2000, and they couldn't fulfill it. But they're going to go out of their way to fulfill it in 2012. Until next time, this is Spellbinders reporting on the Unfiltered News from the Reality Zone newsletter. Good day. And see you next year.